All right, it's the Gear Mick back here with another show. A lot of things happened over the weekend. You had March Madness, obviously. Yeah, so NCAA Mick back here. March Madness Preview Edition Part 2, but this is a Sweet 16. Before we get into that, let's recap last week's games. And obviously, last time we were here, I was talking about me getting prepared to go to Buffalo for that NCAA tournament. Man, it was a good time, though, in Buffalo, though, for sure. I want, I want to thank my dad. I want to thank my dad's fiance, Jill, for taking me. I mean, obviously, that was the greatest Christmas gift ever. I got to see the NCAA tournament in person. I had to go to the games, so I'm glad I got to do that, though. So I'm happy about that. Yeah, Thursday was pretty much all business. It was all about college basketball. We went to saw 3 full games, and of course the fourth one we watched the whole entire first half because it was, and of course we left at halftime because it was a blowout. St. Louis was blowing out Georgia. It got worse at the second half. We were all getting tired, but it was a fun trip overall just to Buffalo for the NCAA tournament. I'm glad I got to experience it. So I'm happy about that. Friday we were just watching basketball. I obviously did some other stuff too. Went to some hibachi restaurant. It was pretty cool. Got to experience that too. Yeah, you gotta get something over. Yeah, so and then Saturday obviously went to the other 2 games. NCAA tournament, boom, came back home. So it was a fun trip overall. But let's recap last week's game. Start with the first 4. A week ago we had UMBC and Howard, which kicked off the NCAA tournament. It was in Dayton, Ohio. So Howard winning by 3. They controlled the game most of the time, but they beat UMBC by 3. 86-83 was the highest scoring game. But UMBC almost tied it up. But yeah, Howard winning the opening game of the NCAA tournament. Then you had Texas and NC State. What a thriller that was. Texas beating NC State to advance. I really thought NC State was going to win that game, but yeah, so Texas advancing. It was a 2-point win for them, 68-66. Then you had Wednesday's games. Prairie View beating Lehigh 67-55, so they won by 12. Yikes, not a good start. Yeah, for my Yankees, no doubt. But yeah, you had Prairie View beating Lehigh to advance to the round of 64. Then the one I was excited about the most of the first 4, you had Miami, Ohio, and SMU winner was going to play Tennessee. So yeah, Miami, Ohio winning that one because they had home court advantage in that one, especially because they're an hour away from Dayton. So yeah, they looked pretty good. I mean, especially from 3-point range. So they dominated SMU and advanced. Now let's get in the round of 64 now, finally. Games I was at. But it kicked off with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Thursday games kicked off with the Buckeyes against TCU. And TCU was up by 15 on one point, but Ohio State came back and even had the lead. So yeah, TCU survived Ohio State. I really thought the Buckeyes were going to win that one. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of following it, but not really. I'll be watching the living room later, but I'm just doing Instagram X still. But yeah, not a good start for our Yankees, Jay. Not a good start. Like you said. So yeah, TCU beating Ohio State. You had that game 2. Let's see. Yeah, Nebraska getting their first ever NCAA tournament win, beating Troy by almost 30 points. 29-point victory. So Nebraska got the win there. Our first tournament win in school history. Then you had the first game I was at in Buffalo, South Florida and Louisville. Louisville was dominant, especially in that first half. They were up by as much as 20 or more. And South Florida made it interesting. Yes, Duke is still in. Yeah, so Louisville survived, beat South Florida because South Florida made it interesting. They were at one point under 10% from 3, but yeah, they made it interesting there. Fun fact is the head coach for South Florida was an Olean native, but now after Louisville ended South Florida season, now he is the new head coach for Providence. So he got a new head coaching job after that. So good for Brian Hodgson, the only native. So I mean, shout out to him for getting for South Florida for his team getting this NCAA tournament. Got to see him in person. Now new job. So yeah, it was good to see him. I really thought they were gonna pull it off, but Louisville, it was too much for them. That slow first half really came back to bite South Florida in the ass. They played a dot better second half. It was just too much to come back from in that one for sure. And then you had the big upset, Wisconsin, first major upset. High Point number 12 seed beating Wisconsin 83-82. And Instigator Mick picked High Point to win that game. So I pulled that upset pick off. I taken High Point. I had a feeling they were going to win that one. Wisconsin's a good team, but High Point just one of those dangerous 12 seeds. I mean, that was a good win for them. I mean, historic win. Their first ever NCAA tournament win as well. They beat big name in Wisconsin. That's a major win because Wisconsin, they're out of the Big Ten, one of the best conferences in college basketball. So that's a good win for them. Then the late session, you had the second session of the games, Duke and Siena. My Duke Blue Devils survived a scare. They almost lost to a 16 seed. They almost lost to Siena. They only won by 6 points. And then when it's 71-65, which really it should have been a blowout. And Siena didn't put any substitutions. They had all 5 stars for the entire 40 minutes, which is insane. It's pretty insane that they almost beat Duke. Give Siena a lot of credit. Yeah, I mean, yes, my Blue Devils won and survived the win, got the win and survived the scare from Siena, but hey, give a lot of credit to Siena. They played one hell of a game, took Duke down the wire. They're up by like 11 points at halftime. I mean, they gave Duke one hell of a fight. So props. I mean, definitely tip your hat out to Siena, even though they lost, but still they kept it close with the number one overall team in college basketball. So yeah, I just sweat that one up. I'm glad Duke won still, but yeah, got a lot of respect for Siena after that one. Then you had McNeese and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt winning by 10, even though I had McNeese in my upset. So yeah, Vanderbilt won that one. The second Buffalo game I was at, Michigan State and North Dakota State. I got to see, one of the greatest coaches in college basketball, Tom Izzo, in person. I got to see Michigan State. Got to see a blue blood program, like a big name program like Michigan State there. Louisville too, but still. Freed, yeah, he's kind of disappointing so far. Yeah, Michigan State winning 92-67. So yeah, it was good to see the Spartans dominate that one. That was the second game I was at in Buffalo for the NCAA tournament. It was cool to be in person, seeing teams like that. Then Arkansas dominating Hawaii 97-78. So the Arkansas Razorbacks feeling momentum after winning that SEC tournament. Now doing well in the NCAA tournament, so they won that one. Then you had another big upset. You had VCU beating Carolina in overtime. They were down as much as like 23. VCU came all the way back and beat the Tar Heels, and I picked VCU. Boy, it makes the A-10 look good. Seeing VCU knock off a big school, big name like Carolina, a blue blood school like them, beating the Tar Heels. And because of that, Carolina fired their head coach just yesterday. So yeah, as a Duke fan, I'm happy. But yes, VCU beat Bonas, but still. Just happy to see Carolina get eliminated, but also just makes the A-10 look good. With that win. Then the third Buffalo game I was at, Michigan, the other Michigan school, the University of Michigan Wolverines. I mean, they had a little scary first half, a high-scoring first half. Then Howard going back and forth from threes, but Michigan dominated that second half, winning 101-80. Had a dominant second half because Howard was giving them a run for their money in that first half for sure. For 16th, and then Michigan just ran away in that second half. So Michigan winning that one. Then you had Texas beating BYU. That was another big win for Texas. They beat NC State, then they upset BYU, which I was surprised in that one. You also had Texas A&M beating St. Mary's. Which I had St. Mary's in that one, so that was a little bit of a mild upset. Then, of course, the later session, you had Illinois dominating Pennsylvania, 105-70. There was a lot of 100-point games in some of these college basketball games over the weekend, I did see. Yeah, so Illinois did that. They put a good number in that one over Penn. Then the final game I was at in Buffalo. This is the one I left at the halftime because St. Louis was dominating. St. Louis and Georgia. I got to see a team out of the A-10 from St. Bonaventure's conference. Yeah, St. Louis beating Georgia 102-77. I stayed for the whole first half. It was pretty cool, but they after that went there because we stayed for 3 out of the 4 games, like 3.5, almost all 4 games. But hey, we got to see all 4 pretty much games. All the first half, the last one. It was good. It was a good day experience for me. St. Louis knocking off Georgia 102-77. Watch the rest of my Airbnb. Oh, it's about college basketball pretty much. It's about right now, and me a little bit MLB also. Yeah, I'm watching about baseball too, but also college basketball, like the NCAA tournament we're recapping. Oh, you play it? Yeah. I'm a big Yankee fan. Of course, it's tonight's opening day. Yankees are playing currently right now on Netflix. also recapping the turn, both doing both, you know. So yeah, St. Louis won that one. Then you had Gonzaga surviving a scare from Kennesaw State. They won that one by like only 9 points, but they should have blown them out. And obviously Houston beating Idaho. No surprise in that one. But your favorite team's the Yankees too? Hell yeah. I'm doing good. Just happy to have the Yankees back, you know. Just hoping we can get that 27th pennant for the Yankees. 27th ring for the Yankees. Finally have Judge deserve the ring. So that was the first day of the round of 64. Then you had Friday's games. That's the one I was just chilling at the Airbnb watching all the college basketball games. I think it was Friday. It kicked off with a thriller, Kentucky and Santa Clara. What an overtime. I mean, what a thriller that was. I mean, we thought Santa Clara was going to win. Especially when they had that three with 2 seconds left. Then Kentucky's star player, Otega Owea, hits a half-court shot to send it to overtime. That was an incredible ending, and then Kentucky ended up winning in overtime. But still, that was a great game. Yankees are, it's current, I think, let's see. I think it's currently scoreless right now. Yeah, it's 0-0, but there's runners at the corners right now. So Giants are getting some offense going. They got guys on first and second with only one out in the bottom of the first inning. Just started. Yeah, Kentucky won their tournament game, I think, Friday night. Yeah, it was Friday afternoon. That was a thriller with them and Santa Clara. That was a hell of an NCAA tournament basketball game. That was a hell of a game. Just that sequence, that second half. Especially when I thought Santa Clara had it won when they had that three, and then boom, Kentucky hits a half-court shot to send it to OT. That was an incredible basketball game, that was. This is why you love March. You have the NCAA tournament. You also got, the start of the MLB season, too. You got a lot of things going on, It's the best time of the year for sure, no doubt. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. Thanks for subscribing. So you had that Kentucky and Santa Clara. That was a good game. And then you had Texas Tech beating Akron by 20. For a while, Akron was hanging in there with Texas Tech. And then Texas Tech ended up running away in the second half. 91-71 in that one. I really thought Texas Tech was going to blow that one. It's Akron. Virginia winning by 9 against Wright State. Wright State hung in there with them. Virginia survived it, but still, Wright State gave a hell of a game. Who's playing tonight? Oh, Yankees. Well, yeah. The only thing going on is Yankees, Giants, but college basketball will resume play tomorrow. The Sweet 16, the Elite 8. Sweet 16 will be Thursday and Friday, and then the Elite 8 Saturday and Sunday. So yeah, the tournaments can resume tomorrow. Just recapping, games from over the weekend. First weekend of the tournament. I always enjoy the first weekend of the tournament just because there's so many teams, so many games going on. I can watch 3 or 4 things at once. I always enjoy the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. See, you had Virginia surviving, having a scare from that one. You had Iowa State. Yeah, it's like Iowa State beat Tennessee State, even though, yes, their star player goes down with injury, but they dominated Tennessee State 108-74 in that one. Arizona beating Long Island 92-58. No surprise there. Arizona, one of the favorites other than Duke to win the NCAA tournament. There, Arizona. Michigan's a favorite too. Then, after that, you had Alabama beating Hofstra, even though I had picked Hofstra for my upset pick, but that didn't go well. Alabama winning 90-70. I really counted Alabama out in that one. But they proved me wrong. I'll give them credit. They played well in that one. Yeah, that game. Then you had Villanova losing to Utah State, which is kind of a surprise, but Utah State's always been a good team. Still, that was a little bit of a shocker there. I'll still be alive. I'll still try. I'll still be alive in a little bit by then, But if not, definitely appreciate joining the show for sure. Like, and popping in the chat and all. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the support and subscribing. No video, but we'll see what time tells, because I might go back out there and watch the Yankees. And then Tennessee beating Miami, Ohio And that one, Miami, Ohio's incredible run came to an end. I mean, they 31 in the regular season, then they got suffered their first loss, but then their last loss, the second loss was one at the end of their season, losing to Tennessee. Still, a hell of a run by Miami, Ohio, going 31-0 in the regular season. Incredible run for them. Then you had the evening session games of the Friday night games. So you had Iowa and Clemson. I mean, for a while Iowa was in control, but Clemson kept coming back. Yeah, I mean Iowa just kept coming back, but I mean Clemson kept coming back, but Iowa survived. They won by 6. That was a good one. Then the CBS games, you had St. John's dominating out Northern Iowa, which some thought Northern Iowa was going to beat St. John's. They were wrong. St. John's, Red Storm looking pretty good. They're looking like a really good tournament team under head coach Rick Pitino. Here that you had UCLA beating UCF. I mean, that was the longest one. I mean, I really thought UCF was going to come back at times, but UCLA winning by only 4 points. They made it interesting, though. Then you had Purdue easily beating Queens University 104-71, so that was a no-brainer in that one. Then, now, of course, the late night session, we had Florida, the second largest margin of victory in NCAA tournament history. And of course, Florida Gators, your defending champs with that win there in that one, the NCAA tournament. So they won last year's tournament. They're trying to go back again. Kansas winning by 8. They were up as many as like 20 or more, but Cal Baptist made it close. Kansas only winning by 8. So they survived a scare there at the end. That's why I love March. You just never know what can happen. Miami beating Missouri. So Miami Hurricanes, the U with the win over Missouri. 80-66. No surprise. Miami's a good squad, especially from the ACC. Then the wrap of the night, UConn avoids the upset over Furman. They beat Furman by 11. Furman hung in there with them. So UConn survived that one. So that was the round of 64. Now it's the round of 32. Let's recap those games. Starting from, I was at in Buffalo Saturday for the NCAA tournament. I was at the NCAA tournament again, obviously for the round of 32 as well. Tournament. St. Louis and Michigan kicked it off. And for a while, St. Louis I thought was going to hang in there, but Michigan pulled away in the second half, dominated, winning 95-72 because their best player, St. Louis' best player, didn't have that great of a game. Robert Avila, rough one for him. But a hell of a career at the university for St. Louis University. I mean, still had a hell of a career this season. A10 player of the year. But so it was cool to see. But I really thought St. Louis was going to pull the upset off, especially kind of my bracket. I was pulling for them, but Michigan just too much. So Michigan is in the Sweet 16. We'll get their game in a little bit. Yeah. Then you had the second game in Buffalo. I was at the last one before I head back home. It was Michigan State and Louisville. It was a battle in the first half, and the second half, Michigan State started pulling away. So Michigan State winning 77-69, beating Louisville. It was a good to see a couple of big name schools like those two. Louisville used to be a powerhouse again. And Michigan State going back to Sweet 16, no surprise there. It was cool to see them. So I got to have a hell of a NCAA tournament experience. My first ever trip to an NCAA tournament games. One I'll remember for a while. So yeah, in those games. But then on my way back home, my Duke Blue Devils beating TCU. They had a tight game in the first half. They're up 4 at halftime, and the second half they dominated, winning by 23 points. And they're on the Sweet 16. So Duke won. Michigan State's in the Sweet 16. So was Michigan. Then you had the 6 o'clock game. You had Gonzaga losing to Texas. I can't believe it. Gonzaga lost. That was a huge upset there over the weekend. One of the huge upsets. Yeah, Gonzaga losing to number 11 seed Texas. So Texas, 11 seed in the Sweet 16. They started 4 in. Now it's in the Sweet 16. They're making a good tournament run. Or a team that was the last 4 and played in the first 4. That happened. Then you had a hell of a game between Nebraska and Vanderbilt. What a thrill that one was. Vanderbilt Vanderbilt tied it up, and of course they had a chance to win. They missed it. And then Nebraska, game-winning shot, 2 seconds to go. What a game. That was Nebraska winning a thriller. That was probably one of the best games of the round of 32. Illinois dominating VCU. No surprise in that one. You know VCU is good, but it's like Illinois is just too deep of a team. So Illinois advanced to the Sweet 16. Houston advanced to Sweet 16, easily dominating Texas A&M, 88-57 in that one. Arkansas winning by 6 points. So I had to scare for my points. So ending High Point Cinderella story. The Razorbacks are on the Sweet 16. Then you had Sunday's games to finish it off before I finally make my picks. It kicked off with Purdue and Miami on Sunday's games. Purdue winning by 10. Miami was hanging in there for a while. They led at half. Miami Hurricanes had the lead at halftime, but Purdue dominated the second half and advancing to Sweet 16. Iowa State looked a little bit slow, but then they got on the run, got the lead at halftime, winning and then they dominated the whole second half against Kentucky. So Kentucky, I'm not surprised they eliminated. They really shouldn't have been eliminated in the first round against Santa Clara. I really thought Santa Clara was going to beat them, but yeah, Kentucky was lucky to get past the first round, but they ran into a buzzsaw in Iowa State. Then, boy, he had another good thriller between St. John's and Kansas. What a game that was. I knew it was going to be a good game, especially because, St. John's, head coach was Rick Pitino, and obviously got a legendary coach in Kansas, Bill Self. That was going to be a hell of a matchup. But it came down to the end. St. John's hitting a buzzer beater to beat Kansas to advance and facing Duke in the Sweet 16. Tennessee beating Virginia. Some people are kind of shocked, but it's kind of both. But these were good teams. I thought Virginia had the size advantage in this one. They had a couple of big guys, but nope, Tennessee surprised me in this one. Pretty much, I think Virginia got outcoached. Rick Barnes had a really good game plan in that one. It was a back and forth. But Tennessee, 6 seed taking out a 3 seed. Arizona surviving a scare from Utah State. So Arizona's on the Sweet 16 with that win. Then you had the big, massive upset. The defending national champion Florida Gators lose to Iowa on a buzzer beater. I can't believe, I did not expect this to happen. Even though I picked Clemson to beat Florida in this round, but wow, Iowa, what a run they're having as the 9th seed. I had a feeling the Gators, I told you, the Gators were going to get exposed. Most of the time, the defending champs don't get past the first weekend. So, yeah, Gators, after a dominant win when they had against Prairie View, they lay an egg against Iowa. That's a good Iowa team. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder right now. I'll say this Hawkeyes team. UConn beating UCLA. It was close, but then UConn pulled away. They're on to Sweet 16 to face Michigan State. Then Alabama finished the night by winning 90-65 over Texas Tech, which I had in my Elite 8. So now let's make our picks for the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Before we do that, let's make my pick for this Friday Sabres-Red Wings game, because this is kind of personal, because, I have my cousins, a little family bragging rights here. Sabres are 2-0 in the series here in this regular season series against the Detroit Red Wings. So I'm going to take the Sabres with at least 2 goals. Red Wings might miss the playoffs. It's kind of crazy to think the Sabres playoff drought's going to end before the Red Wings playoff drought does. Maybe both could end, but Red Wings right now, they're in trouble. So I think and they're on a tough schedule. They got to play the Sabres now. Sabres are going to beat them by 2 goals, especially because the game's in Buffalo. So I got Buffalo winning that one. Now let's make our pick for Purdue and Texas. I'm going to go with Purdue, even though Texas could give them fits, but I think Texas Cinderella story comes to an end. Purdue's going to win and advance to the Elite 8. So I got Purdue in this one. Next, Iowa with the Sweet 16 matchup. A chance to go to the Elite 8. Iowa's having an incredible Cinderella story. Of course, Nebraska winning their very first 2 NCAA tournament games. This is Nebraska's first ever Sweet 16 appearance. So I'm going to go with Nebraska. I think they'll at least get to Elite 8. So I got Nebraska win this one. This is going to be a great game. This is the one I'm looking forward to tomorrow's game. Same with Illinois, Houston too. But I'm looking for that one. I got Nebraska. 9:45 on CBS to finish off the West region. But I got Arizona and Arkansas. These are two I had in my Sweet 16 against each other. So I got Arizona because they're my Final Four of my bracket. So give me the Wildcats this one. Illinois and Houston to finish off night one of the Sweet. Houston's in my Final Four as well. So I got the Cougars beating Illinois. Friday's games. My Duke Blue Devils taking on St. John's. It's a good matchup. Just because, Duke and against St. John's. Rick Pitino, of course. Duke, most time they beat St. John's in the NCAA tournament or like some point in the season, they majority of the time they win the national championship. So I think Duke's gonna beat St. John's. I just feel like St. John's could give them fits, but I think Duke's gonna win by like at least 2 possessions, make like a 6-point win, not like a dominant win, but they'll at least run away a little bit in the second half. I got Duke in this one. Michigan and Alabama should be a high-scoring affair. Take the over in this one. These two teams know how to score. They get, especially in offense, especially from 3. But who do I like in this one? I'm gonna go Michigan, even though I picked them to lose in the second round. But I think Michigan will win this one over Alabama. But don't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama wins this. But at the same time, I like Michigan because they got the size advantage this one. Especially because I saw them in person. I know how capable they can be. 9:45 on CBS to wrap up the East Region part. Michigan State and UConn. This should be a great matchup here. Couple blue bloods going head to head. As much as I want to see a Duke Michigan State Elite Eight, but in my head, I think UConn's going to barely win this one. But either way, I'll be happy with the matchup. If Duke beats St. John's, I don't care who they play. It's going to be a great Elite Eight no matter what. Duke UConn be great. Duke Michigan State, I don't even care who it is, but I'll pick UConn though because I'm getting beat by Duke in my Elite Eight. So yeah, and Iowa State and Tennessee at 10 o'clock. This should be an underrated game here. Who do I like in this one? Tennessee's playing good, but Iowa State I think will win this one. I want them to keep winning because I got them in my Final Four, my bracket. So I got Iowa State beating Tennessee. My Elite Eight picks for Saturday, and we don't know who's going to be playing, but this is my picks I made in my bracket. In the West region, I got Arizona beating Purdue. My bracket had Arizona beating Gonzaga, but they got eliminated early, so I got Arizona winning the West region. I think they'll beat Purdue. I think Arizona gets out of the West region. We'll go to the Final Four, so I got Arizona in that one. The South region, I got my bracket. I have Houston, Nebraska, which I hope it stays that way. I got Houston winning this one and going to the Final Four, winning the South region. And then Sunday's matchups, Alabama. Let's see, Michigan. Yeah, Michigan and Iowa State. I got Iowa State beating Michigan. Iowa State's going to win the Midwest and go to the Final Four to face Arizona. And UConn and Duke. I hope that'll be a good one, but Michigan State will be a good one too. But I got Duke winning the East region. So my Duke Blue Devils in the Final Four. I got Duke and Houston, Arizona State and Iowa State in my Final Four. And obviously, I got Duke beating Houston. I got Arizona beating Iowa State, and then Duke beating Arizona for the national championship. Those are my picks. Rest of my bracket. But yeah, hopefully it goes well. I have a chance to win some brackets. Let's hope my Duke Blue Devils get past the second weekend now. It's going to be tougher. It was a challenge for Siena, that game was, but I think it's going to be a lot tougher than the first weekend. So, yeah. And to wrap it up, we got MLB season officially started tonight with my Yankees, so I'm going to get back to watching that. So, hoping my Yankees can win this one tonight. So, thank you all. Enjoy the opening weekend of the MLB season, but also enjoy the NCAA tournament, second weekend of it. Next week, we'll talk about who's in the Final Four. So we'll find out who's in the Final Four come next week. And next week will be Instigator Mick's birthday. So, yes, next week's show will be on my birthday. So, we're going to be celebrating my 25th birthday. So, yeah, we'll see you all next week at the same time, 8:30. Can't wait to do it next week's show for sure.